I woke up on Christmas morning to an empty house. Not the peaceful kind of empty where you savor your coffee in silence, the eerie kind, the kind that makes your skin prickle because something is fundamentally wrong. No lights on the tree, no smell of cinnamon rolls baking, no sound of my daughter and granddaughter chattering in the kitchen, just silence pressing against my eardrums like cotton wool. I'm Margaret, and I had just turned 63. This was supposed to be my first Christmas in the house my late husband Thomas left me 2 years prior, a beautiful heritage home in Victoria, British Columbia, overlooking the harbor. Thomas had worked his entire career as a marine engineer to pay off this property. He'd made me promise, in his final days at the hospice, that I'd keep it, that I'd live here, that I'd watch the ferries come and go from our bedroom window just like we'd planned. I pulled my dressing gown tighter and walked through the main floor. The grandfather clock in the hallway showed 6:45 in the morning. On the kitchen counter, I found a note in my daughter Christine's handwriting. "Mom, we've gone to deal with something important. Back later. Don't worry." Don't worry. Those 2 words made my stomach clench. Christine never told me not to worry unless there was something to worry about. I made myself a cup of tea, English breakfast, the way Thomas used to make it. Strong enough to stand a spoon in, he'd joke. I sat at the kitchen table, the same oak table where Thomas and I had shared 38 years of meals, and I waited. By 9 o'clock, they still weren't home. I tried Christine's mobile, straight to voicemail. I tried my granddaughter Alexis, same thing. I even tried my son-in-law David. Nothing. At 10:30, I heard the front door open. I stood up, relieved, ready to scold them gently for worrying me on Christmas Day. But when they walked into the kitchen, I knew immediately something had shifted. Christine wouldn't meet my eyes. David looked uncomfortable. Alexis, my sweet 19-year-old granddaughter, stared at her shoes. "Where on earth have you been?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. Christine finally looked at me. Her jaw was set in that stubborn way she'd inherited from Thomas. "We had a meeting with Roger Patterson." Roger Patterson. Thomas's solicitor. My heart started beating faster. "On Christmas morning? Whatever for?" "Mum, we need to talk about the house." I sat back down. "What about the house?" David cleared his throat. "Margaret, we've been thinking. This house is far too large for one person. The maintenance costs alone are astronomical. The property taxes have gone up 30% since Thomas passed. It's not practical. Not practical," I repeated slowly. Christine pulled out a chair and sat across from me. "Mum, you're 63. You can't manage a 4-bedroom heritage home on your own. What if you fall on the stairs? What if the roof needs repairs? You can't possibly afford the upkeep on your pension." "I'm managing perfectly well." "But you don't have to," Alexis suddenly spoke up. Her voice was soft, apologetic. "Gran, we found you a lovely apartment. It's in a seniors complex in Saanich. 1 bedroom, all on 1 level, with support staff available if you need anything." My hands began to shake. I pressed them flat against the table. "I see. And what happens to this house? The house your grandfather left me?" Christine and David exchanged a look. That look, the kind married couples give each other when they've rehearsed this conversation. "We've been talking to Roger," Christine said carefully, "about having the will amended. Technically, Dad left the house to the family. You have lifetime occupancy, but the property itself was meant to be part of the family estate. Given your age and the practical concerns, we think it makes more sense to transfer ownership now. To me and David, we'd sell it and use the funds to secure your care for the rest of your life. The apartment, medical expenses, everything." I stared at my daughter, at her designer handbag sitting on my kitchen counter, at the new diamond earrings she was wearing, at David's expensive watch. "Roger Patterson agreed to this? On Christmas morning?" "He understands it's what's best for everyone," David said. "We're thinking of your welfare, Margaret." I stood up. My legs felt strange, disconnected. "I need to make a phone call." "Mum," I said, "I need to make a phone call." I walked to Thomas's study, our study. I closed the door behind me and sat at his desk. My hands were still shaking as I opened the bottom drawer. Inside was a manila envelope. On it, in Thomas's precise engineering script, it said, "For Margaret, open if they try." I had found this envelope 3 months after Thomas died, tucked behind his files. At the time, I'd thought he was being paranoid. Thomas had always been cautious, meticulous. He'd worked in maritime law before becoming an engineer. He understood contracts and legal protections in ways I never had. I opened the envelope now. Inside was a letter and several legal documents. I read Thomas's letter first, my vision blurring with tears. My darling Margaret, if you're reading this, then I was right to worry. I've watched Christine change over the years. The business degree, the corporate job, the way she talks about assets and investments instead of family and home. I love our daughter, but I don't trust her to honor what we built together. This house is yours. I've structured the will very carefully. The property is held in an irrevocable trust with you as the sole beneficiary. Lifetime occupancy doesn't even begin to describe it. You own this house, Margaret, completely. Any attempt to change my will or contest the trust is legally void. I've also included documentation of a separate trust fund held with Morrison and Associates in Vancouver. $250,000, enough to maintain the house for the rest of your life, and then some. The firm's contact is James Morrison. His private number is at the bottom of this page. If Christine ever tries what I think she might try, call him immediately. He has instructions. I love you. Keep our home. Watch the fairies. Be happy. Thomas. I read it 3 times. Then I picked up the phone and dialed the number. A man answered on the second ring. Morrison and Associates. James Morrison speaking. Mr. Morrison, my name is Margaret Chen. I believe my late husband Thomas set up arrangements with you. There was a pause. Mrs. Chen. Yes. I've been wondering when you might call. Has something happened? My daughter and her husband have just informed me they've been to see my husband's solicitor about amending his will. They want to put me in a care home and sell my house. On Christmas Day? His voice was sharp with disapproval. Mrs. Chen, I'm very sorry you're dealing with this, but I want you to know that what they're attempting is completely illegal. Your husband's will is ironclad. The trust is irrevocable. Roger Patterson knows this, or he should. If he's told your daughter otherwise, he's either incompetent or complicit. What should I do? Do you want to keep your house? Yes. Absolutely yes. Then I need you to do exactly as I say. Do you have access to the trust documents your husband left you? I'm holding them now. Good. I need you to make copies immediately. Do you have a scanner? Yes, in this office. Scan every page and email them to me. My email address is on my business card, which should be attached to those documents. Can you do that right now? I found the card. My hands steadied as I had a task to focus on. Yes, excellent. Once you've done that, I need you to go back out to your family. Tell them nothing. Act as though you're considering their proposal. Can you do that? I think so. Mrs. Chen, I know this is difficult, but your husband prepared very thoroughly for this situation. Trust his planning. I'll handle everything from here. Give me 2 hours. I scanned the documents with hands that had stopped shaking. I sent the email. Then I sat in Thomas's chair and let myself cry for exactly 5 minutes. When I was done, I washed my face in the powder room, straightened my shoulders, and walked back to the kitchen. Christine, David, and Alexis were sitting at the table, talking in low voices. They stopped when I entered. Well? Christine asked. I need time to think about this, I said carefully. Relief flooded Christine's face. Of course, Mum. Take all the time you need. We're not trying to rush you. When were you planning to move forward with the will amendment? Roger said he could have the paperwork ready by the 27th. We'd just need your signature. 2 days. They'd plan to have me sign away my home in 2 days. I see. My mobile phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. A text message from an unknown number. Mrs. Chen, James Morrison here. I have good news. I've reviewed the documents. I've also contacted Roger Patterson's firm. There seems to be a significant misunderstanding. I can be at your home in 90 minutes with all necessary documentation. Is this acceptable? I typed back. Yes. I looked at my daughter. I think we should wait until after Christmas dinner to discuss this further. I've made a turkey. It would be a shame to waste it. It was possibly the strangest Christmas dinner of my life. I carved the turkey. I served the roasted vegetables. I poured the wine. We pulled crackers and read the silly jokes inside, and everyone laughed at appropriate moments, and underneath it all was this terrible current of tension. At 2 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Christine frowned. Who could that be? I'll get it, I said. James Morrison was younger than I'd expected, perhaps 50, with gray at his temples and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He carried a leather briefcase. Mrs. Chen? Yes, please come in. I led him to the living room. Christine, David, and Alexis followed, confusion evident on their faces. "Mum, what's going on?" Christine asked. "This is James Morrison. He's a solicitor from Vancouver. He handled some legal work for your father." Recognition flickered across David's face. Then wariness. James Morrison set his briefcase on the coffee table and opened it. "Mrs. Chen has asked me to clarify some misunderstandings regarding her late husband's will and the ownership of this property." "I don't think that's necessary," David said quickly. "We've already consulted with Roger Patterson." "Yes, I'm aware. I spoke with Mr. Patterson this afternoon. It seems there has been a significant miscommunication." James pulled out several documents. "Mrs. Chen, your husband established an irrevocable trust in your name in 2018, 5 years before his death. This trust holds the title to this property. You are not merely a lifetime occupant, you are the legal owner. Any attempt to modify or contest this arrangement is void under Canadian trust law." The color drained from Christine's face. "That's not what Roger said." "Then I'm afraid Roger was either mistaken or he misled you. I have here a copy of the trust deed, signed by your father and witnessed by 2 independent solicitors. I also have documentation showing that your father established a maintenance fund of $250,000 specifically for the upkeep of this property. Mrs. Chen has complete discretion over these funds." "That's not possible," Christine whispered. "It's very much possible. Your father was extremely thorough. He anticipated this exact situation." James turned to me. "Mrs. Chen, you asked me what options you have. I can tell you that you have every right to remain in this home for as long as you wish. No one can force you to sell. No one can amend your husband's will. The property is yours, free and clear." I looked at my daughter, at her shocked face, at David's angry expression, at Alexis, who had tears streaming down her cheeks. "Why?" Christine finally said. "Why would Dad do this? Why wouldn't he trust me?" That hurt more than anything else she'd said today, because she genuinely didn't understand. "Because of moments exactly like this one," I said quietly. "Because you met with a solicitor on Christmas morning to discuss putting me in a home and selling the house your father worked his entire life to give me. Because you didn't even ask me what I wanted. You decided what was best for me and presented it as a done deal. We were thinking of your welfare. No, you were thinking of your inheritance. There's a difference. That's not fair, isn't it? Christine, when was the last time you visited me? Really visited, not just popped by to check on the house?" She opened her mouth, closed it. "October," I said. 3 months ago, you came with an estate agent. You had her give you a market evaluation while I was making tea. I saw the paperwork on the hall table when you left." "Mum, you've been planning this for months. Your father knew you would. That's why he protected me." David stood up. "We should go." "Yes," James said mildly. "I think that would be best. But before you do, I should mention that Mrs. Chen has asked me to send a formal letter to Roger Patterson's firm regarding his role in this matter. Advising a client to pursue legally void modifications to an irrevocable trust is a serious ethical breach. The Law Society of British Columbia will be very interested." David's face went red. "You can't." "I absolutely can. And I will, if there are any further attempts to pressure Mrs. Chen regarding this property or any other aspects of her husband's estate." Christine grabbed her handbag. Alexis was crying openly now. They headed for the door. "Gran," Alexis turned back. "I'm sorry. I didn't know. I thought they were helping you." "I know, sweetheart. Can I still visit you?" I felt something crack in my chest. "Of course you can. You're always welcome here." She nodded and followed her parents out. I heard David's car start, heard them drive away. James Morrison began packing up his briefcase. "Mrs. Chen, I'm very sorry you had to deal with this, particularly on Christmas. It's not your fault. Thank you for coming so quickly. Your husband was a good man. He spoke very highly of you when we set up these arrangements. He said you were the kindest person he'd ever known, and he worried that people would take advantage of that kindness. He was right to worry." James handed me his business card. "If you need anything else, please don't hesitate to call. I'll send you copies of all the documentation we discussed today. I'll also follow up with Roger Patterson's firm tomorrow." After he left, I stood in my empty house. The same house I'd woken up in that morning, but everything had changed. I walked through the rooms slowly. The living room where Thomas and I had hosted 30 years of Christmas dinners. The dining room where Christine had done her homework at the big table. The sunroom where I'd taught Alexis to knit when she was 7. The master bedroom where Thomas had died in my arms, looking out at the harbor he loved. This house held 40 years of my life. Every wall, every floorboard, every window frame was soaked in memories. Good ones and painful ones and everything in between. Christine had wanted to erase all of that, convert it to money, to an asset on a balance sheet. I sat on the bed and pulled out my phone. I had 17 missed calls from Christine, 8 text messages. I didn't open them. Instead, I called my friend Helen, who lived 3 streets over. "Margaret, Merry Christmas. How's your day been?" "Helen, do you have plans for Boxing Day?" "Not really." "Why?" "I thought we might go for lunch." "I need to tell you about my Christmas. You won't believe it." Helen laughed. "That sounds ominous. I'll pick you up at noon." That night, I couldn't sleep. I went down to the kitchen and made more tea. I sat at the oak table with Thomas's letter in front of me. I'd been angry at him when I first found this envelope. Angry that he'd assumed the worst of our daughter. That he'd planned for family betrayal like he was planning for a roof leak or a furnace failure. Now I understood. He hadn't been planning for betrayal. He'd been protecting me from it. He'd seen something in Christine that I hadn't wanted to see. Or maybe that I'd seen but forgiven, over and over, because she was my child. The thing about having children is that you never stop hoping they'll become who you raised them to be. You keep waiting for them to choose love over money, connection over convenience, family over assets. And sometimes they do. And sometimes they don't. I thought about Alexis's tears. About her question, "Can I still visit you?" That gave me hope. My granddaughter wasn't lost. Not yet. Over the next few weeks, life settled into a new normal. Christine didn't call. David unfriended me on Facebook, which I found oddly petty for a 45-year-old man. But Alexis texted me every few days. Just small things. Photos of her university campus in Ontario. A funny meme about knitting. A question about a recipe. In February, she came to visit. She arrived on a Friday evening, carrying an overnight bag. "Hi, Gran." "Hello, sweetheart. Come in. It's freezing out there." She stepped inside, and I saw her look around, taking in the house, the home she'd thought would be sold and demolished by now. "How are your parents?" I asked as I made her hot chocolate. Angry, embarrassed. "Mum won't talk about it. Dad keeps muttering about ungrateful relatives. And you?" She wrapped her hands around the mug I gave her. "I'm ashamed, Gran. I was part of it. I went along with their plan without questioning it. I should have asked you what you wanted. You're 19. You trusted your parents to make good decisions. I'm old enough to know better. Granddad Tom left you this house. It's yours. They had no right." We sat in silence for a moment. "Can I tell you something?" Alexis said quietly. "Always. When I was little, maybe 8 or 9, I heard Mum and Dad arguing about money. Dad's business was struggling. Mum said, 'Well, when your parents die, we'll be fine. The house alone is worth millions.' I remember feeling sick, like she was waiting for Granddad and Grandchen to die so she could get their money. Oh, sweetheart, I'd forgotten about it until Christmas. But when they told you about the care home, about selling this place, I suddenly remembered, and I realized they'd been planning this for years, maybe forever." I reached across the table and took her hand. "None of that is your fault. Are you lonely, Gran? Here by yourself?" "Sometimes. But Helen comes by twice a week. I've joined a book club, and I'm taking a watercolor painting class at the community center. Your grandfather always wanted me to try painting, so I'm trying." "That's lovely. And you'll visit when you can?" "As often as possible. If you'll have me." "This is your home, Alexis. It always will be." She started crying again. "I love you, Gran." "I love you too, darling." 2 years have passed since that Christmas. I'm 65 now. The house is exactly as it was. I've repainted the master bedroom a soft blue, the color of summer sky. I've planted roses in the front garden. I've learned to watercolor, and I'm not terrible at it. Christine and David moved to Toronto last year. Something about a business opportunity. I heard this through Alexis, not from them directly. We haven't spoken since that Christmas day. Part of me mourns that loss. She's my daughter. I carried her for 9 months and raised her for 18 years and loved her unconditionally. But sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes people choose paths you can't follow them down. Alexis graduated this spring. I flew to Ontario for the ceremony. She's starting a master's program in social work. She wants to help families navigate difficult situations, mediate conflicts, protect vulnerable people. I think Thomas would be proud of who she's becoming. She asked me recently if I ever regret what happened, if I wish I'd just agreed to sell the house and move into the apartment they'd chosen for me. I told her I think about it sometimes, late at night, when the house creaks and settles and I'm aware of how much space surrounds me. It would be easier in some ways, simpler, smaller. But then I wake up in the morning and I make my tea and I sit at the kitchen table and I watch the ferries cross the harbor through the window, just like Thomas and I always planned. And I think about what I would have lost if I'd let them take this from me. Not just the house, not just the physical space, but the right to make my own decisions, the dignity of being treated as a competent adult rather than a problem to be managed, the knowledge that I could stand up for myself when it mattered most. If you're listening to this right now, wherever you are, tell me in the comments, has your own family ever looked you in the eye and chosen money over you? Have you ever had to fight for what was rightfully yours? Or have you ever been the person who had to learn the hard way that family loyalty can't be assumed, it has to be earned? Because here's what I've learned in 65 years on this earth. Some betrayals teach you who deserves your loyalty, and sometimes the people who are supposed to love you most are the ones who teach you that lesson. I'm still in my house. I'm still watching the ferries. I'm still Margaret, and I'm exactly where I'm meant to be,